WCW Backstage Assault is one of those games that I think the publisher owes everyone who suffered through it an apology. I can't really fault the developers because they were just doing their job, but the publisher should have been able to look at this and said to themselves, man, this was a terrible idea. We need to redo this. But they didn't. It would have been one of those really regrettable weekend rentals if I had known the game even existed in 2000 when it was released. I would really love to know more about the creative process for WCW Backstage Assault, but I don't think anybody really wants to talk about it. And probably the people who made it just want to forget about it. I really just want to know from the developers, what this game was supposed to be, what the original idea was, why they didn't have a ring in a wrestling game, why everything took place backstage, and why would well, not really why, but was this game rushed? Just what happened with this? And I don't think we're ever going to get answers. The gameplay is odd, but I should have probably expected something like this given the title. Every match takes place backstage. So everything is a hardcore match. You have no other options to really do anything. Your game modes are very limited. This is something that I would not have wanted to play when I was a kid. It's it's just a strange experience. Like I mentioned earlier, there's no ring in this game. Every match is one-on-one, and it takes place in one of several backstage parts of the arena. So you never see the audience. You don't really have a reason for why these fights are going on. It's just you beating the shit out of somebody, or them beating the shit out of you, depending on the difficulty that you chose. The thing that bothered me the most about this is just how limited you were with everything that you could do. Because there's no ring, you don't get run ins, there's just nothing happening here. There's no tournament, everything's a gauntlet match. There's no option to even go to the ring. So there's no rhyme or reason why anything is happening. It's just a very strange experience. So when I first went through this, I was wrong when I was writing this out. I thought that it was just single player only, but there are two player modes in the exhibition section. And I'm guessing that after playing this with a friend, they won't want to be your friend anymore, or they won't ever want to play this with you again because it's just not good. I didn't want to risk losing one of my friends over having them play this game with me, so I just stuck with the single player mode. I don't know if that made it better or not, but yeah, it's just really stupid. There are only three game modes here, and it's just really disappointing. You have an exhibition match, you have a hardcore challenge, and then you have a hardcore gauntlet. The hardcore challenge is where you'll unlock other parts of the arena, you'll unlock new wrestlers, which I don't know why anybody would want to go through all of this to unlock more wrestlers, but if you want to get to, one of the people that you want to play as, you'd have to go through that. You can also unlock new moves, which is great for when you're, I guess if you wanted to do a creative wrestler in this, you could, and then you could have some moves that maybe you haven't seen before. You can win a match by pinfall, submission, first blood, or knockout, but these matches are all hardcore rules. There's no countout or disqualification. I honestly found it easier to win by knockout or pinfall, and that's pretty much what I went with on every match. Surprisingly, the controls aren't terrible. They aren't great, but I was able to get a hang of it. You just have to kind of remember the button presses for different moves, and that's kind of fun. The controls are pretty much the same for every character, but the moves will be a little bit different, which is great. Um, you do have a finisher, which in theory is pretty easy to pull off, but it just kind of came out at random for me. I really wasn't sure what was happening. What was happening with that? Just randomly, as I was playing with Goldberg, he'd do a jackhammer, and I couldn't figure out why he did it or how to do it again. It was just very random the way it happened. I cannot explain it. Much like WCW Mayhem, you don't have a life bar, but you have a like momentum meter essentially. And I think it's really bad in Backstage Assault because it really doesn't mean as much as it probably should. They do let you know when you're doing more damage, when you've stunned your opponent. It'll let you know when you can do certain things. But I would rather have a life meter. That would just make more sense to me. This is probably a good time to mention the abysmal character selection screen. It was just fucking awful. Why could I not see all of the wrestlers that I had and just select from, a big grid like I've done with other wrestling games? Say what you want about Nitro and Thunder, at least they let you see all the different wrestlers you had, and it was a lot easier to pick the one you wanted. With Backstage Assault, it's just annoying to find the character that you want. It shouldn't be, but it just kind of is. I will say that the game does accurately reflect the quality of what WCW was putting out at this time. There are some good things, but they get overshadowed by all the awful ideas and the awful controls and awful everything that happens in this game. There has to be more to or more of a story to this game than what there really is. I'm guessing whoever would know the answers to a lot of my questions doesn't want to talk about this game anymore. Hopefully, they've moved on to just have successful careers and they could put this mess behind them. The graphics for Backstage Assault are pretty hit and miss. Like Thunder, I thought the intros for the wrestlers was really cool. I like seeing just these little 30-second clips of their actual intros. That's pretty awesome. I think the developers did a great job with that, especially with the faction intros and all of the live footage that's in the game looks really great. After that, everything pretty much goes downhill. I just kept looking at this thing and wondering, why does everyone look like that? Why do they look so ugly? Why do they not reflect the characters that I'm seeing on the select screen or in the videos? Why are they just not even freaking close to it? It's bizarre. They did make the character models look different, so that's great. So when you're playing as one of the cruiserweights, they're not going to be as tall. When you're playing as like Kevin Nash, he's going to be taller than the other wrestlers. So that's kind of cool. But everyone just looks freaking ugly. Like, just not good at all. Some of them look, I don't know, some of them look like you've made a whole bunch of mistakes on a creator wrestler. Some of them just look bizarre, like their arms are too small for their bodies. It's a very strange experience when you play this. Now, some of the PS1 games do have dated graphics, or they don't look as good as they used to. Maybe they looked great for the mid 90s, and now looking at them in the 2020s, they don't look great anymore. Well, the games from, say, 1995 and 96, they have some excuse. That was just the way things looked back then. This was released in 2000. Stuff looked a whole hell of a lot better than what's being presented to us. It's just strange to see the character models look bad and see everything else look pretty respectable or at least acceptable for 2000. The camera is frickin' awful at times. Most of the time it stays in the side view similar to a fighting game. However, it sometimes just freaks out for no goddamn reason, or it changes your perspective and messes with things. And then you'll get stuff in the foreground that's blocking your perspective. It's just weird. I really don't like the camera at all. You also don't seem to have any control over it, or at least I didn't have any when I was playing it. But I do like some of the graphics in this. I think the character models and animations look ridiculous at times, but sometimes the moves look pretty good. I think the environments that you're fighting in look pretty great. I like the fact that you can break stuff in this environment. That looks pretty cool. but the character models just look bizarre at times, and yeah, it really messes with you. The camera is also just terrible. It's been really surprising to see the overall quality of the WCW video games just plummet as the 90s went on. I remember liking the NES game. I thought the SNES game was pretty good. And then I liked some of the earlier PS1 games. But the ones that were released from like 98 and 2000, they've been mostly terrible. At the time of writing this, I haven't played the N64 games yet, so those will probably be better because I at least know they have a better reputation than some of these. I remember liking Mayhem, and when I went back and played it, I thought it was pretty good, and I had hopes for this one to be, average, at least, and that just did not frickin' happen. There are so many little things in Backstage Assault that just annoyed the hell out of me. Simple things that should have been standard in any wrestling game at this point, and they just seem to not be there or they needed to be unlocked, which just adds to the frustration of this game where I just didn't want to keep playing it. I do like the idea of having these backstage fights in a wrestling game, but I don't think they should have been the entire freaking game. So, yeah, that was pretty terrible. Anyway, that's going to wrap things up. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you did like Backstage Assault, please let me know. I would love to hear those thoughts as well. I will talk to you all later. Bye.